Welcome to the Rapport Review Podcast, your space for education, conversation, growth, and change. Sandy and Chip, with every brief episode, will take a moment to slow down, reflect, and explore counseling, its challenges, and victories that shape daily lives. Whether you're a therapist, a client, or simply someone on a journey of personal development, you're in the right place. Let's dive in, learn together, and keep moving forward. This is the Rapport Review Podcast.
Today we're taking a look at one of the most critical documents of behavioral health, the DSM5 TR.
We are. We're going to give you an accelerated course, really zeroing in on the 11 criteria for substance use disorder.
And our mission here isn't just to, read a list, is to break these down, give them some real clinical context so they can be understood and, frankly, applied with empathy.
That context is everything. I mean, the research behind these guidelines from the APA, from NID, it's all designed to define these really complex patterns of behavior.
Right.
So we want to get you past the textbook definitions and into what they actually mean in a clinical setting.
Okay, so let's start with the basics, the boundary lines. To get a diagnosis, what's the actual clinical threshold?
It's surprisingly concise. You need to see 2 or more of these 11 symptoms, and they have to be happening within a 12-month period.
That 12-month window is key, right?
Yeah.
Because it establishes a pattern.
Exactly. That's the real takeaway here. We're not talking about isolated incidents.
Not one bad decision.
No, not at all. We're looking for entrenched, repeated behaviors and physiological responses that just keep showing up over time.
And to help us sort through all 11 points, the DSM-5 TR gives us a really useful structure. It groups them into 4 categories.
It's a great roadmap. It really synthesizes the complexity. The 4 groups basically cover every dimension of the disorder.
What are they?
So first, you have impaired control. That's about the person's inability to regulate their own use. Then comes social impairment, the external cost, to relationships and work.
Okay.
Third is risky use, which is continuing to use even when you know there are dangers. And the last one is physical dependence. That's the body's actual physiological adaptation.
That framework is fantastic. Let's dive right into that first group then, impaired control. So criteria 1 through 4.
Right. This is all about the internal battle. That's where we start with criterion 1, using more than intended.
This one sounds simple, but there's a nuance, isn't there? It's about starting with a clear intention to use just a little.
A very sincere intention, just one drink or just for an hour. But then it dramatically escalates. The core problem is that you can't stick to the rules you set for yourself.
And if you can't stick to your own limits, that leads right into the next one.
It does. Criterion 2, unsuccessful attempts to cut down or stop.
So this is that repeating cycle. You try. You genuinely make an effort to stop or reduce. Maybe you even have a few good days.
But it doesn't stick. The attempt fails, and the pattern starts all over again. That repetition is where you really see the impairment. It's not a lack of wanting to change.
It's the difficulty in making that change last.
Okay, but criterion 3. This is where things get really interesting. This is where use stops being just a behavior and starts taking over a person's life.
Yes. Criterion 3. Spending lots of time on the substance. This one is so revealing about the severity.
And what's fascinating is it's not just about the time spent actually using. The manual breaks it down into 3 distinct time sinks. It does. So first, there's the time spent obtaining the substance. That could be anything from driving for hours to making call after call.
Okay.
Then, of course, there's the time in active use. But the third part, the one that's often overlooked, is the time spent recovering.
The hangover, the withdrawal, the exhaustion.
Exactly. That recovery time is the clinical hammer blow. It shows that the substance isn't just an activity anymore. It's become the organizing principle for your whole day.
Everything else, work, family, it all becomes secondary to this 3-part cycle.
That's how you know it's become central. Which brings us to the internal engine driving all of this. Criterion 4, cravings and strong urges.
How is a craving different from just, wanting something, clinically speaking?
It's defined as a powerful, intrusive pull to use. It feels involuntary. And what's interesting is that while it has a physical side, its place here under impaired control is because it starts as this psychological preoccupation, these intrusive thoughts that you just can't shake.
So it's the mental and emotional pull that defines the loss of control, not just the physical feeling.
That's why it's here and not with physical dependence later.
Okay, so once that internal control is gone, the damage starts to spill outward. That takes us to group 2, social impairment.
Right. Criteria 5 through 7. This is all about the external damage, the functional and relational costs.
Starting with criterion 5, failure to fulfill major role obligations at work, school, or home.
This is where you see the concrete evidence. Responsibilities are slipping. We're looking for tangible things, being late all the time, missing deadlines, not meeting the basic expectations of being a parent or an employee.
The substance is getting in the way of life's basic roles.
Demonstrably. And when that happens over and over, it creates conflict. That's criterion 6.
Continuing use, despite persistent social or interpersonal problems.
This is where relationships just get shredded. The damage shows up in, well, usually 3 ways. First, more conflict, just constant arguments. Second is broken trust. Loved ones feel lied to, deceived. And third is just distance. The person pulls away, physically or emotionally. The substance becomes this destructive third party in every relationship.
And you hear about loved ones expressing concern, begging them to stop, and it just doesn't work.
The fact that the use continues despite all that relational damage is the diagnostic point. The pull of the substance is stronger than the connection to loved ones.
And the final piece of this is criterion 7, giving up important activities.
This is the shrinking of a person's world. Hobbies, passions, things that once brought joy or meaning, they just fade away.
Why?
Because all the time, energy and money are being redirected to the substance use and the recovery from it. Life outside of the substance just gets smaller and smaller.
So after the loss of control and the social damage, the next step is ignoring your own safety. That brings us to group 3. Risky use.
Yes, criteria 8 and 9. This is where you see a breakdown in really basic self-preservation.
Criterion 8 is recurrent use in physically hazardous situations.
The classic example is driving while intoxicated,
Of course.
or operating machinery, or using in physically unsafe places. The key here isn't the person's intent. The issue is that the action itself, because of the substance's effect on judgment and coordination, creates a clear and immediate danger.
And criterion 9 takes that risk and turns it inward toward personal health.
Yeah.
Continuing use despite knowledge of a physical or psychological problem.
This is the clinical paradox. The person knows it's hurting them. They might have a diagnosis, like liver damage or a heart condition, that's directly linked to the substance.
Or on the mental health side.
It could be worsening anxiety, paranoia, or a deep depression that's clearly being triggered or made worse by the use.
What strikes me is the word knowledge. The person is aware of the consequences. They know it's making them sick, but they continue.
And that awareness is central, because in healthy behavior, knowing something is causing severe harm leads to avoiding it. When that connection is broken, when the drive to use overrides the known threat of serious illness, that's a very powerful sign of a severe disorder.
It's profound. That brings us to the final group, group 4. The purely physiological criteria, physical dependence.
Criteria 10 and 11. Here we're moving away from behavior and focusing completely on the body's adaptation.
And criterion 10 is tolerance.
Right. Tolerance is just needing more and more of the substance to get the same effect, or, feeling less of an effect from the same amount.
So the body has physically recalibrated. It needs a higher dose just to feel normal or to get the effect a smaller dose used to provide.
That's it. The body adapts. And it's important to remember that tolerance develops at different speeds for different substances. But the mechanism is the same. It's a clear physiological response.
And finally, criterion 11, withdrawal. This is often the thing that keeps the cycle going, isn't it?
More than anything else sometimes, withdrawal is feeling sick. Physically, emotionally, profoundly unwell when you stop or cut back. It's the body's backlash when the substance it's come to depend on is suddenly gone.
And the symptoms can be brutal. We're talking about physical things like tremors, sweating, nausea, even life-threatening seizures.
And psychological symptoms too. Severe anxiety, irritability, depression, and the most intense cravings imaginable.
So the clinical significance is that people often keep using it just to avoid feeling that way.
Absolutely. The motivation shifts entirely. It's no longer about seeking pleasure, it's about avoiding pain. That mechanism can lock a person into the cycle of use.
Wow. So if you step back and look at all 4 groups, you see the whole picture. You go from the internal loss of control to the external social impairment through the breakdown and risk assessment and land on the body's own physical dependence.
And that structure is what makes these criteria so effective. It forces you to look at observable behaviors and biological facts, not just abstract labels. It shows that SUD isn't one thing, it's this whole constellation of symptoms.
We've taken the diagnostic manual, the clinical research, and hopefully distilled the core of this really complex condition.
Absolutely. And that leads us to a final thought for you to take away from this. We talked about how the body physically adapts, tolerance and withdrawal. So given the profound, tangible ways the body comes to demand a substance, needing more just to function, and reacting with severe distress when it's gone, how does that reality challenge the common idea that overcoming addiction is purely a matter of willpower?
A very powerful question.
Think about the implications if we view drug dependence not as a moral failing, but as a chronic medical illness that requires sophisticated medical care. That shift in perspective, it really changes everything.
Thank you for joining today's Rapport Review. If this episode connected with you, inspired you, or gave you something meaningful to reflect on, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might need it too. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay grounded, stay growing, and take good care of yourself. This is Antonio, signing off from the Rapport Review podcast.